So welcome to the sixth review session for Food Systems 1. We are very fortunate to have as our speaker, Prof. Calianta, Luz Felicidad Escalianta, or Ma'am Luchi Calianta. Okay, Prof. Calianta got her MS in Nutrition and BS in Community Nutrition from UP Diliman. She specializes in nutrition and dietetics, sports nutrition, and culinary nutrition. Some of her awards and achievements are Serve Safe Certified, TAE Enterprise Trainer and Assessor for William Anglis Institute, Australia. She's also a barista trainer from the Coffee Academy, William Anglis Institute, and in CCA Manila. In 2016, she was the Faculty of the Year in CCA Manila. She was a lecturer and a faculty member of CCA Manila and presently a faculty member in the Department of Food Science and Nutrition, College of Home Economics, UP Diliman. She's also the chairperson of the Office of Community Extension Services, CHE UP Diliman. Prof. Caliante is very active in doing consultancy works, writing, giving lectures and talks about nutrition, food, kitchen trainings, and editorial works. So we are very fortunate to have her here. Let us all welcome Prof. Luchi Calianta. All right.
Morning.
Yan po kayo.
Yeah, good morning, everyone.
Okay, I'll start playing her recorded lectures.
Kaya nandito ako ha.
Yeah.
So the reason why it's recorded is just so to make sure that walang glitch because the weather has not been very, very cooperative. Pero I'm here for your questions maybe afterwards, okay?
Yep.
So pretend I am live.
Thank you, Mom, for that. Okay.
Okay. I am going to lecture now on introduction to the food service system and a whole lot of other topics. And for this, I am going to divide the review into two. Okay, so let's begin with part one. If you hear a dog or a cat, please forgive me. I am surrounded by animals. Okay, so let us define a food service system. What is it? It is an entity composed of several systems designed and functioning together to accomplish specific objectives. So that must mean that there is coordination. There is a synergy of all of these subsystems so that they are working together, okay? When they work together, they are working towards a goal that they all share, okay? This is where the concept of holism comes into play as opposed to individualism where one works by himself. This is a team. A food service system works as a team. Now, a simple definition is provision of food and drink ready for consumption away from home. There are several advantages to having a food service system. The entire food service is one body, as I said, it is a team. So there is synergy, there is cooperation, They work together. Employees and management work together. If the employees are not working well, no matter how good management is, it just doesn't work well. Okay. On the other hand, you have very good employees, but management is not supportive, then they do not work well. Problems are easily located and pinpointed and then solved. Cost control and budgeting can be facilitated. Multiple chain type operations is easier to plan and evaluate. Training programs can be developed for knowing each member's performance, and it is easier to control and monitor activities within the systems. Okay, so here is a an illustration of a food service system. You have all of these environmental factors outside as it impacts what is inside. Okay, you have controls, management, memory, inputs, operations, outputs. Okay, so let's try to take a look at some of these. No, first we have the input. What are the inputs? These are the resources available to the system. Okay, so you have raw materials, information, energy, people, facilities, money, and time. Okay, operations is the processing of the resources. So you have the input, then you have the operations that will process the resources. Your output is the goal. What do you want to accomplish? The control are the components that regulates the operations using a set of standards. So you are under control by your set of standards. This is how it should look like. This is how you should prepare roast beef. It cannot look like this if this is my standard. Okay? Feedback. It's very important to have feedback. No? There are changes. Because of the feedback, then you can make changes or adjustments in the system. The environment naman, the one I showed you in the diagram, are the surrounding factors influencing the operations. Okay? So for your inputs, all of those that I showed earlier can be called the 7 M's. Men, money, machine, minutes, market, methods, materials. Or we can say men are your personnel, no? Money is your capital or financial resources. Machines are your equipment. Minutes, of course, is time. Market is your clientele, be they patients or clients in the hotel or restaurants, what have you. Your methods are the procedures that you employ, and materials are your food and other supplies. Now here are the operational phases, although sometimes this is simply called the food flow, the flow of the food within the system. You start out with purchasing, you buy the food, then you receive the food, and then if you are not yet going to use that, you store, and there should be inventory control or a control of where do you put the where it has been stored and how much is there. Then you have the pre-prep and ingredient assembly. We have, after that, production, and then distribution and service, and of course, sanitation and maintenance. So for operations, okay, we have assembly of materials there. You assemble the materials based on the menu that you have planned, purchasing, receiving, storing, issuing. Okay? Then you have production. We have pre-prep, prep, cooking. There is recipe standardization and quantification. Distribution, assembly, no? Distribution, and then service. And on all of that, there should be a well set out and practiced sanitation and food safety program from the start to the finish. So there are several ways of classifying food service, okay? So for the classification segments of food service, we have, okay, first, systems. They differ in where the food is prepared in relation to where it is served. So those are two different things, preparation and service. The time span between preparation and service, what is the length of time between the two? The forms of foods purchased, are they raw ingredients or are they ready to prepare or are they actually prepared? Methods of holding prepared foods, are they chilled? Are they frozen, etc.? And the amount and kind of labor and equipment required. So here are the classification based on operational objectives. What are the objectives of the operation? And the very first one is profit. You are in business because you want to earn money. Okay. There's nothing wrong with that, by the way, no? So what are the profit-oriented uh, establishments? These are those that are open to the public, which are operated for profit, and which may operate facilities and supply meal service on a regular basis for others. And I'm sure that right now you know that the number one here would be your restaurants. Okay? Restaurants are all about profit. They will close if they are not making money. So do not begrudge them the profit that they are getting out of you. You go there naman for the food that they serve, the service that they provide. So of course they want to make profit. No? The buffets that Filipinos just love. And even coffee shops. Okay? So those are your profit oriented. As opposed to the second one, service oriented. Again, nothing wrong with profit oriented, but then there are those that are service oriented where commercial, educational, government, or institutional organizations run their own food service operations as a service to their employees, to the to the students if they're schools, no, to the factory workers, no, all of those. So don't think that uh, there is not much profit involved, but the institution under which the food service operation is working for subsidizes the um, the cost so that your employees do not pay as much. Okay, and the employees do not feel that they are paying because oftentimes these are deducted from their salaries, but again, not kumbaga, it's almost at cost or even less. Okay, because again, part of the service that the company they work for provides for them, it's part of their package, is that their food is provided for. They don't have to make baon or to buy outside. But of course, you still can. So here is a school lunch feeding program. This is a factory assembly, no? And for private companies, no, that serve or provide, no, if you will notice, no, there's no cash register. They will not pay because all of this is either subsidized or if not fully subsidized, the uh, the company takes it from your salary. But you know that, you know as an employee that that is what they do. Okay. Now, this is classification based on the method by which food is served to customers. Okay? So the first one was the goals. This one is where, how, okay? Method by which food, how it is served. First one is service units. They provide a waiter or waitress service. So they have a more extensive menu, a more elaborate informal service. Okay? So we have table appointments. Look at that. No? Very well set out, laid out. And the manner of service, you have a waitress here who will dish it out. There is even a tableside cooking over here going on, no, all of this uh, under service units. Okay, next is counter. Provide rapid service with a minimum number of table appointments necessary for adequate service. So look at this. There are all of these counters everywhere. Here, 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 no? And they're all where people line up to get the money. I get the money to get the food served to them by people behind the counter, and then you just bring it to either your table or there are chairs provided here. Then there are the combination table and counter, which is the same as the first two, but it is usually more informal and has a less extensive menu. So here you have, look at this, there is a counter, and then there are tables here, okay? So it's a combination. Tray or table. It is unique in that the patron is served in the privacy of his room on an informal tray. So this is a hospital setup, okay? This is a tray service maybe for a hotel or an airline. Diba? When you ride an airplane, the food is served to you on a tray. Okay, so that is your tray or table. Okay, self-service units naman. Okay, you have the cafeteria. The customers make the selection from the food displayed at the service counter, and they assemble food on a tray, which they themselves will carry to their tables. Okay, there are people behind the counter who will make sure that the food is always replenished or that the food is always kept sanitary. Sometimes they are also there to help the customers themselves dish it out to the tray. Okay. Buffet, as I said, a favorite among Filipinos. Food are set out on a counter in a buffet setup, either from self-service, so you yourself carry the plate with you, or to be served by an attendant. You still carry the tray, but somebody else behind the counter dishes it out for you. There is limited service, very informal setup. Then there is takeout service. And in this time of the pandemic, this is how things usually go, where individual items or even complete meals are packaged and either taken from the premises by the patrons themselves or ordered by phone and then delivered to him. So you have here takeout counters. You will notice that the foods are already packaged. Then these are also available, delivered. But here in the Philippines, we have Grab. Look at that, Grab Express, Grab Food, and Grab Bike. This has been our lifeline during this time of the pandemic. Now, we have classifications based on the delivery and service of food. We have the conventional food service system, where foods are purchased by the individual food service in various stages of preparation. But all preparation is completed, and then the food is made ready for service in a kitchen on the premises where the food is to be served. After food production, these foods are either held or served as soon as possible. So in a conventional food service system, you purchase the food, whether it is raw or ready to prepare, whatever, and then put inside the kitchen and then prepared. Okay? Then there is modification. It is a semi-conventional system, but the preparation is minimized through the purchase of some convenience foods, such as ready to prepare soups, okay, and sauces, or all of these convenience foods such as packaged foods, no, bottled tomato sauce, canned tuna, all of these, we call them convenience foods because they make life easier for us. The commissary food service system is where you have either a centralized or decentralized food service. Okay, so we have centralized food procurement and production, where the distribution of prepared menu items to several remote areas to final preparation and service. So there are remote areas. So that means in the remote areas, there is still preparation to be done. Okay. But there is also the, but mostly it is just the final preparation. The decentralized meal assemblies, foods are produced in one location and then transported to various locations for assembly at sites near the patients or where or whoever your client is, no? And you need here equipment so that proper temperature is maintained. Kasi you have to remember that when the food is brought to those various locations, they are already produced. They have already been cooked. Okay. Ready prepared food service system is cook, freeze, and stored label concept. Foods are prepared on the premises, then frozen immediately and held for use at some later time. Okay, so here are the different types of food service systems. First is the conventional system. Okay, so we talked about this already, but I just want to do this. Now, menu items are prepared in a kitchen in the same facility where the meals are served, and they are held for a short time, either hot or cold. And as I mentioned earlier, these are your restaurants or a patient in the hospital. But the food is prepared here in the kitchen. Okay, or this is an employee setup for private companies. This is a school setup. And this is a feeding program usually done during times of emergencies, no, or natural disasters or calamities. Okay, so what are the characteristics? Same premises and location for food prep and service. They use some raw foods and some convenience foods. If you will notice from the picture, there was pandesal. Food procurement is done by the own unit, by the unit, and food is prepared for immediate service. All types of equipment are needed, and you need both skilled and unskilled employees. The advantages are for quality control. They are more adaptable to the regional, ethnic, and individual preferences. Okay, this is especially important if you are working for a hospital because patients have their own needs. Greater flexibility in menu changes and less freezer storage space and minimal distribution costs. Going back to this, ethnic Muslims will have their own food requirements. Disadvantages, it creates peaks and valleys in workloads of employees. It's very difficult to achieve high productivity. It makes scheduling difficult. Yeah, okay. So second is ready prepared system. Foods are prepared on the premises, then chilled or frozen for future use. They are stored for reheating at a later time. And then food is served in a different place. Okay. In a healthcare facility for hospitals, the patient service is a complex distribution process and involves centralized meal assembly, where the time between production, assembly, and distribution is minimal. There are shifts in a hospital, some of them as early as 3 a.m. because they have to prepare already for breakfast, okay? And then trays are assembled at a central location, so they dish out there, and then they are distributed to patients using carts, and these carts are either heated or refrigerated based on the food that they will be serving. What are the advantages? The activity takes place in one location only. It allows a standardization of portions because they are dished out, no? There is uniformity in presentation. What one patient gets, the other patient gets. Of course, if there are some requirements, then magkakaiba. But they use the same tray. Waste reduction. There is less time of staff. The decentralized meal assembly is where foods are produced in one location and then transported to various locations for assembly at sites near patients. The equipment to maintain proper temperature is provided at each location, supposed to be. And then for difficult to hold foods, there are also cooking equipment so that if they cannot be stored for later use, then they prepare it there itself. Less time is needed, and group services are easy. What are group services? Let's say you have a seminar and there are breakout rooms, diba? That used to be the norm. And you have to serve these breakout rooms. So there are assigned personnel already for each breakout room. So this is the centralized kitchen where all the food is prepared. This is what I meant when they all are dished out. They all look the same. The patient gets it. Okay. Cook, chill method. This is where food is prepared and cooked by a conventional or other method, then quickly chilled. When I say quickly, in an hour and a half or less, it reaches 37 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, if it is bulk or pre-plated form, no, 5-day storage in the chiller. But if it is in an air and watertight packages, it can stay for 45 days in the chiller. Characteristics. Same premises ang food prep and service. Same, raw and some convenience foods are the forms of food purchase. Food procurement purchases for its own unit. But when it comes to the time span between prep and service, the foods are prepared and cooked and held for 1 to 3 days or 45 to 60 days. And the amount and kind of equipment, aside from all types of equipment, you also need blast chillers. Okay. For labor needs, there are fewer skilled workers and employs a production line type of work. Cook freeze naman method, because if you will see here, it's cook chill. This one is cook freeze. Food is frozen for use at a later time. And here we use blast freezing or cryogenic freezing system. Okay, such as this. Okay, and it is usually used for airlines. See, that's an airplane. This is a cryogenic freezer. And look at the characteristics. It's the same for the first three: location, form of food, and food procurement. But for the time span between prep and service, it is up to 3 to 4 months. Frozen muna siya. Amount and kind of equipment, of course, you need all types of equipment plus a cryogenic freezer. And you need fewer skilled employees. The advantages is that it has reduced peak and valleys of workloads, reduced production labor costs, improved quality and quantity control. There is improved nutrient retention because as soon as it is prepared, no, all of the nutrients are still there, then it is frozen, okay? Affords variety to the menu. It is frozen for the improved nutrient, and therefore the nutrients are left there, hindi siya nawawala. And ensures availability of menu items. The disadvantages is it needs large cold storage freezer units and rethermalization equipment. So in terms of that, these things cost a lot. Plus, you need a lot of space because these units are very big, sometimes as big as a whole room. Walk-in freezers. Think about walk-in freezers. That's how big a space you need. Foods are prone to structural and textural changes because they are blast frozen and then shipping. You cannot serve it frozen. So it needs to thaw, and then as it thaws, there can be some changes in its structure. And food hazards must be well controlled. If you have reviewed already your food safety and sanitation, you know then that lowering temperatures, freezing, does not mean that you kill the microorganism. It simply means that you put it in hibernation, so to speak, no? But then as you thaw it, it deactivates again. So by the time you freeze it, dapat food hazards are gone. Were able to prepare it with zero microorganism infestation. Okay. Next, you have the commissary or the central production unit. Look at all of these commissaries, so bright and shiny. It is a large central production unit, kitchen, with centralized food purchasing and then delivery of prepared foods to service units located in separate areas for final prep and service. And they are prepared using large, sophisticated equipment. So, what are these establishments? Airline caterers, large city schools, and then chain restaurants. Okay, the chain restaurants that you see around, no, not everything is done there. They have a commissary, and then the the sauces, maybe the softened meat, whatever, are all brought to the chains so that you eat in one chain and then another chain, you should get the same taste. So the advantages, cost of process is less, everything's there kasi, reduced duplication of labor, sophisticated equipment and expertise, makes work easier, and quality can be maintained in all outlets. Like I said kanina, you eat in chain number 1 and then you eat in chain number 2, it's the same. Disadvantages. You need a food microbiologist. Why? Because you want to make sure that everything is clean, sanitary. Chances for theft is more because everything is there. Fluctuations of customers may occur. Food must be loaded and transported in correct temperature for safety and quality. And there is a high cost of purchase, maintenance, and repair of all the equipment that you will be using. Here are some examples of these equipment. Now, what about the characteristics? Food preparation service is separate this time. Food purchased is primarily raw, okay? Centralized on food procurement, meaning there's just one area where everything is purchased. The time span between prep and service differs. There is immediate service and there is for later use. And the amount and kind of equipment is large and sophisticated. You even need vehicles for delivery and you need good reheating equipment. The labor needs, you need highly trained employees. And as I said, you need a food microbiologist. The advantages, cost savings in food purchases, labor and equipment, more effective quality control. The disadvantage, many critical points in production where contamination may occur. So that's where you need your food microbiologist. It requires special equipment and vehicles to transport food and production equipment that can be expensive. Next is assembly serve systems. Look at this, they are kitchenless kitchens. Why? Because fully prepared foods are purchased, stored, and assembled, heated, and served. Okay? So, in a way, no, there is an equipment for reheating, for heating. Okay? So, for that one, meron. Look at these examples. You have here fruits that have been cut up and then packaged. Okay? Here you have foods, or like this one is packaged wraps, no, that are ready to eat. These are all gaining popularity here in the Philippines. Okay, characteristics. No preparation in the premises. The form of food purchase, all convenience and prepared foods. Food procurement purchases for its own use, centralized in the case of chains. Okay. For example, I know a chain that serves prepared fruits, no? So that is not anymore prepared in the commissary, they just purchase it. And the chain itself is the one that purchases it. No on-site preparation, so foods are ready for reheating and service at any time needed. Reheating, setting up, and serving are the kinds of equipment needed. And because of that, you only need unskilled employees. When I say unskilled, I don't mean that that they are unschooled. It simply means that in terms of the kitchen and the skills that are needed inside the kitchen, in terms of cooking, they do not possess that. Okay. Advantages: cost savings in labor and equipment, minimal equipment, space requirements, and operating costs. The disadvantage is limited availability of a good selection of foods. Why? Because you are beholden to whatever it is you have purchased outside. And the quality of the food may not be excellent. Okay? Many a time you buy something that has been prepared outside, open it up and say, ay, hindi siya masarap. It just looks nice, but hindi siya masarap. High cost of prepared foods. Prepared foods may not appeal to customers. Okay, so these are just some segments of food service. You have correctional food service, prison food, no? Okay, these, prisons, they do what is called bidding out for their foods to serve to inmates. And at one time, I was invited to participate in the bidding. And actually, you cannot bid because the budget is already given to you. So I only reached up to step one because the budget that they wanted was at that time 50 pesos a day. Was it 50 or even less? I think less, no? Let's say 40 pesos a day per inmate. Okay? So that's already for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Was it? I don't remember anymore, but it was really, really low. Okay. Recreational facility food services. What are these? Parks, amusement park areas. Okay. They have food services. Usually they are kiosks, the kind. No? Then you have fine dining restaurants, school food service, university food service, hospital food service in the lodging sector. So you have hotels, motels, military food service, and food service in nursing homes, although we don't have much of this in the Philippines. So to summarize what we have talked about, the food service system is made up of several segments, all of which exist for one common goal. The system's approach provide the framework for understanding how the food service operates. The food service industry operates under various systems, each with advantages and disadvantages. The adoption of appropriate food service systems is largely determined by the extent of resources, operational limitations, and target outputs. Okay, so let us continue. This is going to be very short, this history and evolution of food service, because I am not anymore going to talk about how it was in the medieval times, okay? I think you're going to talk about this in another review, but cooking in the 20th and 21st centuries is what I want to talk about because of new technology, the practice of cooking sous vide, which is French for under vacuum. Now, when sous vide began, it began simply as a method for packaging and storing foods in vacuum-sealed plastic bags. But then, the chefs started to explore how to use this technology so that you are able to control cooking temperature and times with extreme precision. And as a result, familiar foods have emerged with new textures and flavors. Okay, this is a sous vide setup for meat. And look at this. Look, at how beautiful the salmon that was cooked in sous vide way is to the traditional way. Okay, so it looks much like a slow cooker or a pressure cooker, but these are bigger and you do have to use special uh, uh, bags. Okay, now, so that's it. We now go to food production in food services. We have objectives and standards. And let me give you an outline, no? Food production management. Then we go to quantity food production principles, trends related to food production, food safety during food production, and then common equipment prerequisites. So food production management muna. Okay? Okay. What is food production? It is the transformation of raw or processed foods into an acceptable finished product. Not just acceptable, but not just edible, but acceptable. Okay? So in the planning stage, you have cooking methods, the quantity and cookery principles, your menus, standardized recipes, and forecasting. Let's take a little bit look at forecasting techniques. Okay? This is under food production management pa din. Forecasting. Do you need a manghuhula? No? No, you don't. No? A prediction of food needs for a day or other specific period or time, but as a guide to future demand, but you do not need a manghuhula because you have data available. Okay? Now, why is forecasting necessary? Because it aids in purchasing. You know how much to purchase. It aids in production planning, and it avoids the cost of overproduction and underproduction. So what are the data? I said you need data used in forecasting. You need historical data, popularity index, food eating trends. Okay? For some food services, they take a look at their data in terms of normal attendance. So it's a school. So you know how many are enrolled. Airline reservations, you can get that. Patient census, you always know how many patients you have per ward. And occupancy projections in terms of hotels and the like. Now, what is this historical data? You have weather, events, amount sold on a particular day in the past. So you take a look at your data. Last year, on this particular date that you want to forecast for, okay, you want to forecast for the end of this week. And then you go back 1 year ago, how much did doesn't have to be 1 year, okay? It can be last week lang nga, titignan mo. Okay. Why didn't I have so many customers that day? Oh, you take a look at the weather. It was a typhoon, so people were not going out. Okay, there's no typhoon predicted for this week, so you can now forecast a higher amount of people to serve rather than basing it on last week's number. Okay, events. You're going to prepare for Valentine's Day. Then you take a look at Valentine's Day last year. Okay, what was the numbers then? Okay, and you want to add a little bit more. Okay, don't rely just on that. But see, you are basing it on actual data. Popularity index. What's the popularity index? Well, you take a look at how many ordered this food. Okay, there was in the hospitals. What you can do is take a look at the leftovers. Okay, but actually even in restaurants. But how many ordered beef roast? How many ordered baked chicken? How many ordered the tofu? Whatever, and then you see if in terms of its popularity, it is worth it to prepare more or less. Food eating trends. What are the trends nowadays? Lalo na in this time of the pandemic, no? food eating trends have come and gone. Okay, there was a time when there was a baked sushi. No, that was, I think, the first trend that I tried. Okay, after that, nawala na. After that, inasal, it's still around. Pizza, all sorts of pizzas. Most of them, are those foods that can be delivered because nga of the situation that we are in now. Okay, but if you are a restaurant or if you are in a food service establishment, Korean foods is a trend, no, has been around for a long, long time already. It's already part of our life, actually. Okay. Now, for production planning. Production planning is like conducting an orchestra because it is a process of planning when to produce foods, how much, where, when, and where it will be needed. You need to have a very good feel of everything that is there, okay, and that needs to be controlled. So there are some general considerations in production planning. Decide what to be produced and when. Okay, so you have menu, the recipe and its cost, labor, equipment, facilities. Okay, so you decide what to be produced in terms of your equipment. I don't have equipment for baking, so why am I going to produce something that will be baked? You decide what to be produced in terms of labor. I don't have a baker, so why am I going to produce that? Okay? Check if materials for production are on hand. Okay? There is nothing worse than planning for everything. No, then you begin to produce, and then, oh, I don't have this, I don't have that. Plan on the proper time for the production of different food items. There is a way of planning things so that they dovetail or they can be actually prepared simultaneously, okay? Or something is boiling on the stove or something is baking in the oven and still there is something being done outside, okay? Adequacy of labor in terms not just of number, but also of skills and equipment. The cost in relation to budget or menu price constraints. You have to know what is your budget and you have to know what is the objective of the organization you work for. Is it for service, in which case cost is not a problem, or is it for profit, where cost is a major consideration? Consider service of produced food, okay? The proper dish up, the proper plating and assembly, okay? Now, there are three types of production planning: the laissez-faire method, production sheet method, and the ingredient room method. Now, what are these? The laissez-faire method is where management gives guidelines and the employees do the actual production planning. I would do a lot of this in school when we have laboratories because the students themselves have to do the actual production planning because it was their training. Okay, I was the management, I give the guidelines, but this can also be translated to actual production commercial establishments. Production sheet method. The management plans production and communicates it through the food production sheet. Here is a sample food production sheet. It's July 7, 2019, let's say. Department is bakery, and Jose is the one who will prepare it. What for? For a bedtime snack. And there are special instructions. One, you label each with a kind of sandwich, with a patient's name, ward, and bed number. And second, you wrap tightly in sandwich plastics. Okay? So Jose now knows what he has to do. In all, he has to prepare 67 sandwiches, 10 of which are these, 22 are these, and 35 are these. Very specific, right? Okay. What else? Here is food production sheet. This one is a little bit more, somebody can fill it in, no? And you have the date, prepared by, customer count, and here you have the menu item on the side, and then just fill in the portion size, the amount to prepare, the amount actually prepared, and then the amount left over and the amount used. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Okay. So, I, ah, sorry, this remote thing has its disadvantages. Okay. The ingredient room method naman is where mid-management does the production planning. Okay? So you have top management, then mid-management does the production planning. The information is fed into a computer and the resulting data are sent to relevant units. One such relevant unit is the storeroom because they are the ones who prepares the ingredients for the other different units. And then a production sheet is again prepared where the employees now follow, which the employees now follow as they prepare for production. Okay. Okay. So now we have maximizing use of leftover food. Okay. Tips for using leftovers. All right. So you have leftover something, no? Maybe a ground spread, a ground meat or whatever. What can you do with it? So the tip is do not serve leftovers as is. You have to be more creative. You want to create something new, okay? But first of all, of course, is you have to make sure that it has been kept sanitary. It has been kept safe so that it is free from microorganisms. So what can you do with it? You can do a sandwich spread like this one. You can make a burger patty or balls. It can become a fried item, a sauce, a soup, another dish, or as a filling inside a chicken or what have you. Okay? In the home, fried items, no, like especially if it is fried fish, can be made into ding-ding, di ba? Again, what you are after is that the leftover is not going to be served in the same way. Now, writing block recipes. The recipe format, we have 4: standard form, action form, narrative form, and descriptive block form. Okay, the standard form or the domestic form. Okay, we have here a format that gives all the ingredients first and then the method. Okay, so here are the ingredients, the amounts, and then the preparations. Okay, now in terms of the preparations, it can be that the preparation is beside the ingredient. So you say 1 2/3 cups sifted cake flour. That is the preparation for the ingredient. Okay. It can be in a narrative form. See, this is usually used for magazines because it saves a lot in terms of time. This is the action form. Okay, what are the actions? Beat together, beat in, steer in, no? Action, action, action. Wow. Okay, everything seems to be moving. Okay, I like this because it means you are very, very active. And then you have the block or descriptive form. Okay, and this is now where I will stop, but this is your standardized recipe form. If you will take a look at it, no, it is in a tabular form, and it has already been standardized, no, so that you have for 50 servings and you even have for 100 servings. You do not, in other words, this particular recipe for spaghetti and meat sauce has already been standardized. And then the recipe ingredients are on one side, and then the preparations or instructions are in such a way that all the ingredients are together if they are supposed to be together. Okay? So let me end here. I will stop share and I will have a uh, part two of this for your review. Okay, so this is now part two of our presentation, and we will begin with rules in writing recipes. Okay, so in terms of the ingredients, list ingredients in the order of use. Do not abbreviate except when it is necessary to save space. Give ingredients in the easiest units of measure. Now, let's begin. Ingredients, no? Sorry. So, three, that's not four, sorry. Five specified types of products needed. So, for example, you have egg. Do you need egg white? Do you need egg yolk? Flour, is it all purpose or cake flour? Pork. Well, you cannot just say pork. You will have to give the retail cut, correct? And also tomatoes, for example, even that one, no? You need to be very specific, say native or cherry and the like. Give the exact names of the products used or use descriptive terms. Okay, so let's go back a bit, no? So list ingredients in the order of use. So if the first ingredient that you're going to use is salt, you put that, no? Now that is one way of doing it. Another rule can be how parang in order of their importance in the recipe. If it's a pork, for example, a pork recipe, then some rules will state that you have to start with pork. Okay. Do not abbreviate except when it is necessary. So sometimes you are allowed for tablespoon, for example, that's such a long word, TBSP, or even just a big letter T, as opposed to teaspoon, TSP, or small letter T. Give ingredients in the easiest units of measure. You need 1 kilo. Don't say 1,000 grams. Or you need a gallon. Do not say 16 cups. Give 1 gallon. So you need to also know how to convert, no, the ingredients, the measures. Okay. So specified types of products. We already talked about that. For the method, use short sentences to illustrate clear, simple directions. Do not be too wordy. Okay, give word pictures if it is possible, and use methods for combining or cooking ingredients that represent the best accepted procedure. Okay. Give thought to the most efficient order of work to avoid using extra utensils or doing extra steps. So, for example, you are going to fry several items. Do not go from frying item number one and then you go to beating something, mixing something, and then go back to frying. No, so try to have an efficient, coordinated, and organized method. Try to give both general and specific tests of temperatures. So you can use an actual thermometer, no, or you can use commonly accepted ways of determining whether, for example, if it is boiling, then we all know that it should be bubbles are appearing, no, as opposed to using a thermometer. In terms of accuracy, always edit the recipe. In terms of grammar, in terms of spelling, okay? Read over the edited recipe. Does it say exactly what is meant? Is it simple, clear, and complete? Then recheck the ingredients, their amounts, and method against the original. Okay, so what do I mean by the original? Sometimes you're working with a already standardized recipe, or maybe you have some scratch papers, but just make sure that everything there is accurate. The order of listing the ingredients. So You have to read the methods and the procedures and make sure that everything that is in the procedure in terms of ingredients are in the ingredient list. And everything that is on the ingredient list should be mentioned in the procedure. It is very frustrating to be reading a recipe and making something, and then there's tomato in the list of ingredients, and you have no idea what to do with the tomatoes because it is not there in the procedure. Cooking time, temperature, yield, etc. should also be accurately written. Now, what are the parts of a block recipe form? You have the item or the recipe name. You have the recipe yield. Ano recipe yield? So after doing all of this, do you get a gallon? Do you get 1.5 kilograms or whatever? No? And then you have the portion size. Is it a cup? Is it 3 pieces? Is it 200 grams? I do not know. It all depends. Number of portions. So your number of portions multiplied by the portion size should be the recipe yield. Okay? Cooking temperature and preparation time. Okay? The cooking temperature is usually the internal temperature, or if it is not a whole thing, no, the temperature of the cooking liquid. The preparation time is both for pre-prep and the actual cooking. Ingredients, and then ingredients by weight, volume, or count. Then procedure or preparation method. Okay, panning instructions, portioning information, nutrition information, and then notes. For example, the serving utensil to be used. Okay, these notes written usually at the end of the recipe. If madadagdagan, no, just go ahead, but make sure that you make sure that everyone else knows that you added some notes. Now, what is the recipe yield? Pan yield, the total weight, volume, or count. And that is a basis for selecting the pan for preparation. You have to consider as served portion and EP or edible portions. So for a 2-gallon soup, it's not 100%, 95%. So it's about 1.9 gallons. Okay? Meron natitira, meron mga konting mga spillages, and there is what is called, it evaporates, so nababawasan. So here is a table that shows your hotel pan and steam table pan capacity and yields. So just take a look at this, no? The depth is 2, 4, and 6, okay? Depending on the kind of pan, but mostly it's 2, 4, and 6 inches. And then this is the full topped off capacity, but usually we just put 85% capacity because we don't want it to reach at the very edge, no? And this is how much it is going to give you. So just be familiar with this. Now, in terms of portion size, you have volume. You can use cups, teaspoons, spoons, and weight portion sizes. So you can use a weighing scale, kitchen weighing scale, no, a dietetic scale, pwede, and or count. So how many pieces of asparagus are you going to put on a plate? How many pieces of chicken tenders or fish fillet? The size of an item's individual serving? Okay. Okay. Ingredient listing. Usually it is at the leftmost side of the recipe form. It is listed in order of use with descriptive terms for each and grades or brands when needed. Okay? So, descriptive terms, so you say egg, comma, chicken, okay? If it's chicken that you're going to use, or egg, comma, chicken, comma, large. We don't have grades here in the Philippines for chicken, but we have sizes, okay? Brands, puede din. So we have tocino, comma, fatless, comma, Pampangas best. Okay. Then the descriptive terms, okay, we have tomatoes. So it is canned and afterwards it is cubed so that the procedure also comes with the list of ingredients. Indicate the variety when needed. Okay, so canned is the kind and form of food as purchased. Okay, then it is, the cubed here refers to the preparations to make the ingredient different in form. So you modify it now. Okay, sometimes you canned tomatoes and instead of cubing, you will be asked to mash. Okay, so it all depends on what your recipe calls for. The amount of the ingredients list in specific unit of measure in terms of weight, volume, or count, and as purchased versus edible portion. Okay, the UOM to be used. Okay, unit of measure to be used. Abbreviations for units should be in the singular form. Okay. Ayan. Here are accepted abbreviations. I already told you earlier about teaspoons and tablespoons. For cups, it can be C. For pints, it's PT. Quarts is QT. Gallon is big letter G or GAL. Ounce is OZ. Pound is LB or this, I don't know what it's called, hashtag ba ang tawag dyan? Oo. Inches, IN, and number is NO. Okay? Those are accepted abbreviations. And in food production, we have been using AP as purchased, AS is as served. Now, C, you spell it out if more than one. Okay, more than one. EP is edible portion. Degrees Celsius is just this one, and small O and C. Fluid ounces is FLOZ. Gallon is gal. LB is pound. Then package is PKG. Pounds per square inch is PSI. Pints, quarts, teaspoons, and tablespoons. Now, spices, flavorings, or other ingredients in small amounts, okay? So less than 1 ounce, use teaspoon or tablespoon. Use decimal parts of a weight instead of fractions. So instead of saying 5 1/4 kilogram, put there 5.25, okay? Yeah. Procedure. The right side, so this is the ingredients, this is now the right side for the procedure. So the right side of the recipe, opposite the ingredients involved in a particular procedural statement. It describes the exact method of preparation for each ingredient as it is added. That's why for ingredients, it is best to list it down in order of use para hindi ka lalaktaw-laktaw. Advance or pre-prep should be written separate from other procedures. So don't go into a recipe that in the middle of the recipe, you will write there, prior to executing the recipe, you should do a pre-prep of this and this. But you're already halfway through the recipe. So you should do that long before the start. Okay. Ingredients and procedures which go together are separated using visual blocks. They are numbered in sequence and should contain no abbreviations. Spell out ingredients that are involved in the procedure. Okay, so for example, you need tomatoes, you spell out the tomatoes, do not say tom, okay? Contains the panning instructions at the end of the procedure in terms of volume. It lists cooking, baking, or roasting temperature and approximate time, and it also includes portioning information or garnishing details. So after the block, no, serving instructions as in pan, utensil, a serving plate, or serving procedure. Leftover instructions are also there. So how do you store it? What do you do with it afterwards? Okay, that should also be included. Approximate preparation time, and this is very important. Revision number and date. Is this going to, has this been revised 3 times, and when was the latest revision? For example, okay, let's do some examples. For serving instructions, serve in brown soup bowl on a 7-inch liner and serve with crisp crackers. No? That's very, very clear. For leftover instruction, refrigerate immediately in 2 or 4-inch counter pans, okay? Cover with film, label, and date, no? Which means that if you find a container, a counter pan inside the refrigerator with no label, then that means it has not been, the leftover instructions were not followed. Or maybe there were no leftover instructions. Now, in terms of nutrition information, we need approximate levels of certain nutrients per serving portion. In class, we use the PDRI, di ba? In terms of energy, carbohydrates, protein, fat, so those are your macronutrients. And then usually for micro, you have iron, vitamin A, iodine, saturated fats, cholesterol, sodium, sugar, and fiber. Okay? You evaluate levels of nutrients using a reference standard for various age groups. Okay, so sorry. So this one you can, by now all of you know how to calculate for nutrition information. Notes, how can you substitute for ingredients? Okay, variations, number if more than one. Okay, so maybe it can be prepared this way, or this way, or this way. So just number your variations. And then other information that can be added, a portion for utensils. No, so a separate portion. So usually if you have a block recipe, you have the portion for utensils on one side and then equipment before you even begin with the list of ingredients. And then cooking and point temperature, especially if it is for meats and you insert a meat thermometer or a cooking oil frying thermometer. And reheating temperature. Although if you have gone through food safety and sanitation, then you know that for reheating, if it's liquid, it should reach boiling point. And if it is solid block, no, the heat should go all the way to the middle. Okay. So a note regarding the weight used, a photo of the finished recipe. This is very important because that is going to tell the one who is recreating the recipe, oh, this is how it's supposed to look like, okay? And some plating suggestions. Okay, so we are done with writing block recipes. We are actually done with forecasting techniques, production planning, maximizing the use of leftover food, and writing block recipes. We are now in preparing production schedule. What is a production schedule? It is a detailed list of food items to be produced for the current day's menu, plus any advanced preparation needed. So not only that, it is a scheduling of actual cooking of the menu items. Okay, so here, in order to make a good production schedule, you have to have some decision-making and communication process. It's not just one person who will make the production schedule. It would be good if you have a meeting of everyone involved in the production when you make your production schedule. It ensures efficient use of time, equipment, and space. It tells the people what menu items to prepare and how much of it to produce, no? What are the quantities? And also when individual items are to be produced, and very important, who is responsible for preparing each item. So when you make a production schedule, it actually can represent a work shift. So consider all the food preparation areas. You have pre-prep, hot food prep or the range section, cold food preparation or the pantry section, and final preparation area. So there are three general steps in the production of quality food. There is preparation, cooking, and third is finishing and portioning for service. So I already showed you this earlier. The food production sheet can look like this. So this is the date, prepared by, and customer count. The menu items are on one side, and then you have portion size, etc. So just fill this in. Ay, aray ko. Okay, so now we go to portion control. Yan. Portion control programs will control the food cost, will deliver proper nutrition. You will end up with accurate serving portions and major equal serving portions. And there is efficiency in operations, and it is a very effective means of achieving your goals. So here are portion control tools. So there is a dipper number, and this is the approximate measure per dipper number and the approximate use and when it is used. So just take a look at this, okay? So, andyan siyang lahat. Then, yan, portion control tools, okay? You have NSF certified dishers. These are your super pans. These are your ladles, no? And these are called spoodles. Okay. And now we go to ingredient substitution. And why do you need to substitute ingredients? Number one, the original ingredient is not available. No, huwag mong pipilitin kung wala naman sa available for you. To reduce or maintain cost, the original ingredient is just too pricey. And take advantage of fruits and vegetables in season, no? Which means it's a season for what? Mangoes, or it's a season for sugar kiat. No? I love sugar kiat, but it has a certain time of the year when it is in season. So you take advantage of that. Also, to alter nutritional and even aesthetic quality, and to save time. Okay, so here are some baking ingredient substitutions that you can use. For example, you don't have 1 teaspoon baking powder, then you can just use 1/4 teaspoon baking soda plus 1/2 teaspoon cream of tartar. You do not have 1 cup of unsalted butter, but you have shortening or vegetable oil, so you can substitute it with this. It's an or, it is not an and. Then you do not have cream of tartar. So for every teaspoon of cream of tartar, you can use 2 teaspoons vinegar or lemon juice. For seasoning substitution, 1 cup of ketchup, you can use 1 cup of tomato sauce, plus 1/2 cup sugar and 2 tablespoons vinegar. That's why we always say ketchup is actually very high in sugar. Corn syrup, you can use 1 cup honey, plus 1 cup maple flavored syrup. Okay. You're being asked for 1 tablespoon finely cut fresh herbs. You can substitute it with 1 teaspoon dried ground herbs. Okay, what else? 1 cup of fresh milk. You can use 1/2 cup evaporated milk plus 1/2 cup water. Or you can substitute it with other kinds of milk like soy or almond milk. Okay, yeah. So those are your quantity, your food production management. Now we go to quantity food production principles. Okay, this is for food production for 25 or more customers, and it's usually a preparation of food more than what is usually served at home. So once you go beyond what is served at home, so you have a party, that's already quantity food production. But if your party is like a party for 10, no, that's not yet quantity. Okay, so we already talked a little bit about recipe standardization, or we will talk about it in later presentations, but it is actually a process of tailoring a recipe to suit a particular purpose in a specific food service operation. So when you standardize a recipe, you look into the type of operation, the equipment that you have, the professional skills of cooks, and time for training. Now, when you standardize a recipe, this is not written in stone. It can still be modified. But the main purpose of recipe standardization is to ensure that all meals that are served to the clients meet quality and quantity standards. So a method of adjusting recipe yields, you can use the factor method, where ingredients are multiplied by a conversion factor based on the desired number of servings. So you divide the desired yield by the known yield. So this is your desired yield. This is your known yield. What is the known yield? The yield of the original recipe. What is your desired yield? Well, you're going to serve for 25 people. Okay? So what conversion factor should you use if you need to adjust a certain recipe to 100 serving portion when your base recipe is at 10 serving portions? So here you have both desired yield and known yield. All right? So 10 is the answer because it is, what is your desired yield? 100. What is your known yield? 10. 100 divided by 10 is 10. Okay. So this is the factor method. Okay. So when using the factor method, you convert all household measurements to its equivalent weight or volume in terms of grams or ml and expressed in two decimal places. Okay, what is allowed is when it is in teaspoons and in tablespoons. Okay, the expressions, fractions are converted to decimal places. So it is a constant unit for an ingredient. Then you multiply the amount of each ingredient in the original recipe by the factor. Now, ingredients which are not increased proportionately with others, such as herbs or spices or leavening agents, no, or thickening agents and liquid, should be dealt with caution. Round off unnecessary or awkward fractions, and for the benefit of the cooks, reconvert the ingredients to household measures. So this is a sample table. You have the ingredients. This is the household measures. This is the new amount because of the conversion factor. And this is the converted amount. Okay? And you have the recipe amount in household measures. So this one and this one should now be different. Okay, so for example, you have this known yield is 6 servings. Your desired yield is 50 servings. So what is your factor? So first you have all of this. You have your baby back ribs. This is a recipe for baby back ribs. Soy sauce, honey, ketchup, etc. This is the volume, and this is the equivalent metric quantities. Okay. So what is the factor method? It's all 8.33. Why is it all 8.33? Because Desired yield is 50 divided by 6. The answer is 8.33. And the final amounts needed is this one. How did you get all of that? So you take out your calculator now and let's see if tama nga, no? So you have here, ako maglalabas. What is the factor? 8.33 multiplied by 1.5 and the answer is 12.495. Okay? Then you round it off. 12.5 kilograms. Okay? And 1,041.25 ml. But this one should be 1 liter kasi 1 liter has 1,000 ml plus 50 ml. Okay? Same holds true for this one. Okay? This one is 520 ml, 41.65 grams, 16.66 pieces. Ha? So pwede din. Rounding it up. 83.33, 41.65, and 249.90 ml or 250. Okay? So rounding off awkward values. So hindi ba ang daing awkward values? So ito na siya. So 520.63, 520 to 525 ml. Okay? 83.3, it's either 80 or 85. Although in recipes, no, it's usually you round up. Okay? Sorry. You round down because it's always easier to add, no, rather than to deduct, no, if it's like, uy, masyadong maalat. Eh, dadagdagan mo ng tubig, magbabago na lahat. It's just easier to add. The factor method now. This method can be used to adjust a, sorry, we were talking about factor method. So this method can be used to adjust a recipe to any size. You can use a computer program, okay? But it requires math skills and calculations and requires attention to detail and accuracy. Okay, so now we have food safety during food production. Okay, but since we all have, you have your very own review in terms of food safety and sanitation, I am not going to stay on this too long, but it is very important to have acceptable hand washing stations. Okay, so you have a signage here, there is soap, and if possible, there is hot and cold water. You have disposable towels, waste container, and a warm air dryer. Okay, so the food handler should always take care. There is hand care, proper glove use if you're using gloves, okay? It is called disposable for a reason, okay? You are not supposed to wash it again. Personal hygiene should always be practiced. Know how to handle an injured or ill employee, and you should always have a tasting spoon for food tasting. Then, when should hands be washed? Okay, so wash your hands after touching any soiled object. When you use a handkerchief or tissue, but not for wiping the hands. Okay, when you clean or take out the trash. Okay, smoking, eating, or drinking outside of the kitchen. When you scratch any area of the body, so make sure your hands are not always going to your hair or whatever. Handling raw food, handling dirty dishes, and before handling clean dishes. And of course, when you go to the restroom. So time and temperature control is also important for keeping food safe. Make a thermometer available in the areas where it is needed. Establish clear procedures, including time and temperature standards. When preparing food, do small batch preparation if possible, okay? Unless you have a really big operation and you have high pressure stoves and the like. Cook, hold, cool and reheat food properly. You cooked it properly, but then your holding system is not very good. Okay? You do not make sure that the foods are kept away from what is called the temperature danger zone. Okay. Discard food, the temperature danger zone, if it spends more than 4 hours in the temperature danger zone. And take corrective action if time and temperature standards are not met. So safe cooling, thawing, and reheating. Safe cooling is that in 2 hours from 135 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit, and in 4 hours from 70 to 41 degrees Fahrenheit. And use the 4 acceptable methods of thawing foods, okay? In a refrigerator at 41 degrees Fahrenheit, in a microwave oven, if the food will be cooked immediately after thawing, submerged under running potable water or at a temperature of 70 degrees or lower for 2 hours. I do not like this because this is such a waste of water. Okay? And as part of the cooking process. Lagay mo doon sa kaserola and it is thawed. Okay. So safe cooling, thawing, and reheating. For reheating foods, okay, heat foods until it reaches an internal temperature of 165 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 seconds within 2 hours. Okay? So preventing cross-contamination during food production, there should be prepare raw and cooked or RTE foods in separate areas using ready-to-eat foods in separate areas using separate utensils, and work on the RTE foods first. Wash hands frequently when working with raw foods. And of course, use clean and sanitized equipment and utensils. You can keep your hands clean, but if whatever you are using is not clean and sanitized, it's useless. Keep all food contact surfaces clean and sanitary. Clean is different from sanitary. Huh? Okay. Now, cook foods to proper temperature. So, eto siya. These are the food types. And these are your minimum internal temperatures, okay? And it reaches that internal temperature, you hold it there for this long a time, okay? Combinations. So you can also have a minimum internal temperature for microwave oven cooked animal foods. Cook only as needed. Day-old croutons, breading mixes, and toast. Okay. Storing, use of vacuum packing and freezing. Okay. Use of baking mixes, and of course, standardized recipes. Now, for all leftovers, there are some food safety tips. Store leftovers within 2 hours of cooking because if not, it stays on the temperature danger zone longer. Cool hot items before refrigerating. Please do not put it inside the refrigerator while it is steaming hot. Let it cool first. And then place foods in shallow but clean covered containers so that the temperatures will just evenly distribute throughout the food. Okay, refrigerate and then use within 48 hours. If longer than that, don't put it in the refrigerator. Okay, you put it inside the freezer. Okay, place food containers on wire racks and do not overcrowd units. Never mix with fresh foods. Okay, and then, okay, and common equipment prerequisites. Okay, your equipment, tools, and standards should be easily cleaned. All food contact surfaces must be non-toxic, okay? So, under intended use and conditions. So, dapat when it is heated, it should be non-toxic pa din, okay? Corrosion resistant and non-reactive. You put acid, tapos magre-react. So, that is not good, Okay? All food surfaces must be smooth, free of pits, cracks, crevices, ledges, rivet heads, and bolts, because these are the places where dirt can accumulate. It's very difficult to clean. Okay, so there you go. That was part 2. And I will end the meeting now.
Okay, we'll take our break now. Then we'll resume after 15 minutes. So that's about 9:52. Okay, so come back on time, please. Thank you. Please don't forget to evaluate our previous lecturers. The links are given, or the QR codes are given in this video at the end. I can fast forward it there. Thank you. Okay, let's continue.
Um, our topic for this session is on recipe. Sorry. There. Our topic for this session, recipe development and standardization. And let us begin. So what exactly are standardized recipes? These are recipes that have been tested, revised, retested, no, so that every time you execute this recipe, you repeatedly produce good results. Of course, no, you do not stop at testing and then you're not satisfied. You keep on testing until you are satisfied with the results, so that in your production, not only are you consistent, but you are consistently successful. Okay, so A standardized recipe is a recipe, or it is sometimes called a formula that can be easily duplicated by a number of individuals and you still achieve the same results. Okay, so for example, I will do the recipe and then my daughter will do the recipe, my assistant cook will do the recipe, somebody else will do the recipe. We will get the same result. And it is one of the most important tools in assuring high and consistent quality, reliability, and controlling costs in institutional food production. Now, sorry. Okay. Standardized recipes are critical. It can be for appetizers, soups, entrees, salads, desserts, even drinks can be standardized. Okay. So whatever you want to create in your kitchen, you can standardize. So there are many advantages of a standardized recipe. It eliminates guesswork. There is consistency and high quality products. It eases costing. It eases training of the staff. It minimizes leftover and waste. And it prevents dependence on one staff. It even saves time and it facilitates control. So let's take a look at all of these advantages one by one. So guesswork is replaced by accuracy. No, you avoid the guesswork that is made by chefs who prepare recipes based on personal taste and preferences. Remember, you are creating recipes for others, be they patrons in a restaurant or in your whatever business you have, or they can be patients in a hospital. And all of these people have their own likes, dislikes, and if they are patients, diba, they have requirements. So you cannot just keep on guessing. No, oh, this is what I like. This is what I personally prefer. But, you know, it is not yourself you are cooking for now. You are also cooking for others. Number two, customers are assured of consistently high quality products. No? So that I will buy this today, tomorrow I will buy this again, day after tomorrow I will buy this again, next week I will buy this again, and every time, no, every time you purchase it, every time you taste it, you will get the same satisfaction. I mean, you're not going to keep on purchasing it if you're not satisfied, but there will come a time, no, you will say, why does it not taste the same as it did before? Then that means that something went wrong, no? Some person, or maybe the person who was assigned to cook it, did not follow the standardized recipe, and therefore the quality and the taste and everything became different. Okay, so it should be that there is consistency in the taste so that your customers will get the same satisfaction every time and they will keep on ordering and be satisfied. Number three, it is easier to cost because the standardized recipe contains an exact list and measurement of ingredients, making it very easy to cost. Okay. Number four, it is easier to train workers. You have to understand that a standardized recipe is actually a tool. Okay. The workers, especially those who are new to the establishment, will be quickly trained in the proper procedures and techniques because they have you and the new worker will have a standard to follow. Okay. Sometimes called a reference guide, so that when in the course of whatever they are preparing, they encounter difficulties, all they have to do is to go back to the standardized recipe and check out, where did I go wrong? What happened? Number five, it minimizes leftover and waste because actual production needs can accurately be determined, guiding the amount of purchases and requisitions, which minimizes losses due to spoilage and overproduction. This is a big no-no, okay? because you have to be able to know how much are you going to buy, no? How much are you going to request from the storeroom, okay? So that in the end, there is no leftover because it was very exact. And the reason why there's no leftover because production was kept to its correct amount. Number six, it avoids dependence on any one personnel. Everyone has access to your standardized recipe. It is very difficult if you entrust your standardized recipe to just one person. What happens if that one person suddenly resigns, quits, or that one person gets transferred somewhere else and brings with him the standardized recipe? Then you are left with nothing. So you should be able to put all of these standardized recipes written into a recipe card, or you use the computer and create a database so that at any time your food production staff may need to access it, it is there and they can easily get it. That means you are not dependent on any one worker, okay? And the quality of the product that you want to create is continued, even if the workers move on to, as I said, quit and move on to other jobs, or even within the company, move on to other challenges. And seven requires less time for mise en place and preparation because the testing of the recipe leads to a more organized, a simpler work procedure so that it saves on very, very precious productivity time. Can you just imagine if all of this, no, were spread out, nakakalat kung saan-saan, then it is not a very organized work procedure, correct? But because you have that standardized recipe, you can prepare, which is what mise en place is all about. And there is less time spent on, this disorganization. Okay. And the last one is facilitates control. Two types of control: consumption control and dietary control. In consumption control, the standardized recipe makes it possible to compare, on one hand, actual consumption of the operation, and on the other hand, projected consumption. You don't need to hire a controller because everything is there. Okay. What about dietary control? The dietary requirements can be controlled through the standardized recipe because if you come up with a patient who has special dietary needs, the recipe can easily be adjusted. Okay. So what are the qualities of a standardized recipe? First, it is tried and tested, of course. Now they undergo a, may I say, rigid standardization process. It consists of development, testing, adjusting, and retesting if needed. Okay, second, uniform product results. That is a quality that is very important because the end product of a standardized recipe should be consistent in terms of quality, flavor, and even appearance. How is it served? Okay, so this uniformity of results is even independent of the skills level of the production staff using the recipe because now everything is written down. Everything is, all the instructions are there for them to follow. Third quality is you get a standard yield or portion size of the product. A standardized recipe has been adjusted to produce a yield based on the production needs of operations. And fourth, it is written in a standard format. This format can be whatever you find as a suitable format, or you can even make your own. But that format best suits your production activities. But I would suggest the use of either recipe cards organized in a recipe file How is it organized? It's up to you again. Maybe by entrees, appetizers, all in one place. Or it can be inside a computer and you create your own recipe database. Okay. So here are sample standard recipes. This is chicken tetra, not, wait, chicken tetrazzini or turkey can be. And see, all of it is, everything is here. Okay. So all of the utensils, the yield, the oven temperature, baking time, portion size, and what tool are you going to use to portion out? Here it says spatula or a spoon. Eto naman, you have all of the ingredients, how much do you need, and the procedure. Okay? Dito pa nga, in the terms of the portion, it is illustrated. Oh, now this is how you're supposed to divide. Okay. Now, so these are your recipe development can be in response to market trends and changes, in response to changes in food ingredients and equipment. You do recipe development for operational efficiency and even for cost efficiency. Okay. So first, you do recipe development in response to market trends and changes. During this time of a pandemic, goodness, no, the market, the food market has just blown up, diba? There are so many changes in terms of consumer preferences in food, and this is brought about by a very dynamic market. Naglalabasan, no? All of these hidden skills of people are coming out so that you have people making pizza of all kinds. There are people who are making all sorts of prepared goods. Some of them even make ready to cook items. So the consumer has been very quick to to get onto that, what they are, whatever they are seeing on the internet. Oh, this is something new, ganyan ba? So here, people are looking for new gastronomical experiences and they patronize innovative menu ideas. The more, I won't say exotic, but the more unique it is, that's very sorry I got disconnected, but let us continue. There. So like I said earlier, respond to market trends and changes. So people are looking, as I said, for new gastronomical experiences. Very new, no? In the internet, okay? There is someone who is making a killing, no? Doing really well. They're just making it's so simple, no? They get the ingredients from Bicol and then they create something like all of these Bicol delicacies, and they're making money, and people are looking for it, looking for these. Okay, so these are just some examples of how we develop recipes because we are responding to the market and how all of these trends and changes are taking place. I know of another one. Actually, my son is into ravioli. No, simple thing, raviolis. But the way he has marketed it is he has created a recipe. He attaches it to his ravioli pack and he instructs his customers on how to do this. Okay. It is also in response to changes in food ingredients and equipment. This is a sous vide. No, before this there was the pressure cooker. Before that, voila, we just used the kawale, di ba, for a long time. But because of these changes, we develop recipes that we can use all of this new equipment with. Okay? So all of these changes in technology has brought about new food stuff, such as convenience food, pre-mixes, no? So all of us are familiar with all of these packs na sabaw ng sinigang, no? Little packs of instead of making your own stock, you already have cubes that will flavor your soup. So that is in response. This should simplify and improve both the procedure in making the product and the quality of the food and service. Third is for operational efficiency. Food production establishments need to make profit to continue its operation. Let us not, wag tayo magpaligoy-ligoy, di ba? You are in business because you want to make money. If you do not make money, you will just fold up. You will just close shop. Okay? So when you do recipe development well, your work can be simplified, resulting in a more productive flow of operations. And more productive flow of operations means you either make more money, no, or you generate more income, or you save on time. And time also is costly. Okay. And number four is for cost efficiency. You review recipes for update and possible savings so that substitutes can be found. You are using an ingredient that is very costly, but then you found a substitute for it that will give you anyway the same taste, the same appearance, then go for it. Or revisions in portion size. You found out that these portion sizes, no, you own a restaurant, your portion size is this big. And every time the plates come back to you in the kitchen where you wash the dishes, there's so much food waste. So you know that the portion size is too big, okay? Or ingredients can be found to reduce costs and therefore for you will equal to higher profit. Now, this is your recipe standardization process. Let's take a look at it one by one. We go from either starting out with a new recipe idea or you go back to an old recipe and you're just going to standardize it. You develop the recipe, you test the recipe, you adjust the recipe, retest the recipe, you adjust the yield, and then fix it in a standardized recipe format. So, as I said, let's take a look at it one by one. So you develop the recipe. It starts, as I said, with the development of a recipe idea, or you go back to an old existing recipe. It's very, it is a very good practice for you to always have paper pencil ready or your phone so that anytime an inspiration comes to you, you write it down. Okay? Then after you do this, no, what are the ingredients? You now find out. What are the methods? What am I going to do with all of these ingredients? What is my procedure? What is going to be the packaging and the serving presentation? Develop a marketable name, and then you standardize the recipe. So even before you go to number 5, you go through 1 to 4. Okay? So of course, the ingredients and the procedures is already self-explanatory. Pero itong packaging and serving presentation, especially if you're going to do something that is delivery, no? How are you going to do it so that your package will keep the food safe and sanitary, no? Or how are you going to do it so that it still looks palatable by the time the food gets to where it is being sent? Of course, if you have in the hospital setting or in a hotel or restaurant, all of this also very important in serving presentation. We have a saying that the first to eat are the eyes, no? And if the eyes are not happy, then it follows also you lose your gana to eat. Okay, so it's very important that how it looks is there. And so that every time somebody serves that, it will still look the same. Then you develop a marketable name. Asa sa inyo na yon. Okay? Develop a name maybe for the recipe itself. Okay? What would be a nice name for this? Are you going to give it just the name spaghetti? Let's say. I have heard of so many spaghettis named after the person who created it. No, so there's Martha's spaghetti, or we say it's named after the place where it was originated from. Okay, so just have to choose a name that is catchy, and then you standardize now the recipe. Okay, so there. So where are we now? Develop the recipe. Now test the recipe ngayon. Testing requires evaluating the flavor, color, texture, and appearance of the finished product. Now, this is not just done by you. You will have to go through a taste panel testing. And this is not as simple as it sounds. No? It's a little bit complicated. So if you have a recipe that you develop, they are not supposed to be able to talk to each other or to see each other as they taste it, so that there is no influence. No, you are influencing how the other person is seeing the recipe. Okay, so you have to be. I'm not asking you to go look for professional taste testers, no, but you just have to run it by a number of people. Okay. Now this is outside. This other considerations is now within you and the establishment that you work for. The practicality, the methods, and the procedures are matched with the production capabilities, okay, and the yield of the recipe. Can you do it so that you're preparing for 50 people when in fact your kitchen is very small, okay? Or maybe you have you are developing a recipe and the people who work for you are not as skilled as you want them to be. So you have to take all of those into consideration. Now, when somebody does an evaluation in taste testers, this is a sample form. So you have here the recipe name and the category. So is it a dessert? Is it an appetizer, etc.? Then the date. And then this recipe number is just for purposes of organization. So check the box that best represents your analysis of each factor. And these are the factors. So it goes from poor to excellent. All you have to do is to check the box. There are some forms where these boxes have actually numbers assigned to them called the hedonic scale of of evaluation. So you go from 1 to 9. And then there is this last question. Should we use this recipe? Yes or no? Okay. So now, based on the results, you are now ready to adjust the recipe. Once it has been evaluated, the recommendations are considered and the recipe measurements are adjusted accordingly. Okay. And then you retest the recipe. There's the green arrow. The recipe is retested and retested, adjusted and retested again. All until the standard that you were looking for is reached. Okay? So it is not enough for you to stop. I've done it already 3 times. If you yourself are not yet satisfied, then you just go on and on. Then you adjust the yield. No? Once the standards have been reached, the yield of the recipe should be adjusted to the common production yield required by operations. So you come up with a recipe conversion factor, which is simply desired yield over the current yield. Let me give you an example. The recipe yield for this one is 8 servings. The production requirement is 20. So the desired yield is 20 and the current is 8. So it's 20 over 8 and the answer is 2.5. Okay, so for a standardized recipe yield of 20 servings, you have 3 ingredients, A, B, and C. Okay? The quantity is 1.28 kilograms, no? 540 ml, 135 grams. And you now factor in your recipe conversion, 2.5, 2.5, 2.5. So what do? You multiply 1.28 multiply by 2.5, and your new is now 3.2 kilograms. 540 ml times 2.5 is 1,350, but that's 1.3 kasi ml yun. Also, to make it easier, it's by liter, the one that is closest. No? 135 grams multiplied by 2.5, and you get 337.5. If, for example, you're doing this, please never round down. Always round up, okay? Because it is easier to, for production now, it's easier to have some leftover than to run out and buy again, okay? So round up always, never run down. Adjust down. Next is fix it in a standardized recipe format. Okay, write in a standard form. When the yield has been adjusted and standardized, you can now use standardized recipe cards or in a computer. Now, meron iba't ibang formats. The action form format is the most recommended because it is concise and organized. Here you have an example. Okay, this is the standard form, useful for recipes with many ingredients. Okay, so the title and the important information are on top. Then the ingredients and the amounts are listed from major to minor. And then the procedure comes at the bottom. Okay. We also have, so this is the standard form na pinakita ko pa lang. This is what is used commonly in cookbooks. Okay. This one is the action form. And for this one, it is written down in a tabular format. And here, all of this will be used all together. Diba? Number one instruction, combine all ingredients. And then a second action is to season it. So that's a second line. Okay? What else? This is an action recipe example. What are some verbs? Line, arrange, freeze, blend, puree, taste, and serve. Okay. Now, narrative form is good for short recipes. This is also a form that is used commonly in magazines, because it saves on space. Okay, so it is also especially useful if kukunti lang naman ang mga ingredients. So again, the title and important information are on top, and then all of the ingredients, its amounts, and the procedures are combined and written as one complete set of instructions, and then it is written in paragraph form. Okay. So these are the components of a standardized recipe: the recipe name, product classification, recipe file number, the yield, the portion size, the cooking time and temperature, ingredients, the measures, procedures and methods, and the date retrieved. Okay, what is this date retrieved? Somebody got it from the file. They should put there the date that they got it in pencil or ball pen lang yan. So all of this, but I am sure that even you will be able to add some more to these. These are just the basic ones. For example, I myself will want to add here, if possible, serving suggestion. A picture. A picture will be very, very helpful. What else? I will even add here sidings. What do you serve it with? You have a standardized recipe for rellenong bangus. What do you serve it with? Okay? And all of these things, that is all up to you. So ayan po ang standardized recipe. And I hope that from this discussion, no, from this lecture, you are able to understand more what the uh, procedures are, how to go about creating a standardized recipe. So maraming salamat po, and I will now end this